your town. We're happy to be here. Playing for half the door and maybe a few beers. Here's an idea.
Al Floss presents the complete and alarming history of America's greatest garage band, The Stools.
In 1979, Al Floss, the Stools manager, hit on a brilliant idea. Put out an album where all the songs' titles were different girls' names.
Now, Floss didn't normally stick his nose in music. He is listed as producer on all the albums, but he really didn't have anything to do with the music, other than selling it. However, he came up with an idea for 1979's Meat The Stools. That wasn't half bad.
Al Floss figured that 12-year-old girls were where the money was. And who didn't like hearing their name in a song? So they got the 12 most popular names from 1967, figuring that would be the names of a large percentage of the 12-year-old girls in 1979. And they wrote a bunch of songs using those names. It worked. The album was a huge seller.
Of course, the problem was, they sent Cosmo to Census Bureau to look up the names, and he came back with a list of most popular girls' names from 1979, not 1967. But it still turned out okay.
Stroke of genius, really, because even if your name wasn't in one of the songs, you knew someone whose name was in a song. I still remember all of them, in order. Jennifer, Melissa, with 2 L's, Amanda, Jessica, Amy, Sarah, Heather, Angela, Nicole, Michelle, Elizabeth, and Kimberly. I was in the 10th grade in '79, and over my high school career, I had a crush on a girl with each of those names. So they really stuck with me, especially Amy. She was my 9th grade homeroom teacher.
Of course, in the late 70s, the Stools were seen by the hipster and lazy music critics as the grandfathers of punk, and perhaps rightfully so. So the Stools went and did the most punk thing of all. They turned their back on rock and put out an album of very commercial-sounding pop songs.
Talk about spinning your fan base on its head. Here are the Stools, darlings of the punk scene. And the first single they put out in 1979 is a disco song, Jennifer. That pissed a lot of people off.
Playing over in London, you're in town for one night or a dozen. It ain't open for discussion. She don't mind if you give her a Dutch oven.
They had been booked to mime the song on Soul Train, which, of course, everybody was miming on TV those days. And when the band got to the studio, Don Cornelius, the affable host and producer of the show, flipped out. He didn't know they were white, and more importantly, that they were old and ugly.
Yeah, Don Cornelius had one hard and fast rule. He was the only old and ugly guy allowed on Soul Train, so the Stools got bumped. The show still played the song, which was all Al Floss really cared about. But the band wasn't allowed on camera.
The band took getting bumped in stride. They weren't big fans of miming on TV anyway, but Antonio did steal all the E's off the Soul Train scramble board on his way out of the studio.
Going disco in 1979 was a gutsy move. It was quite a backlash against dance music at the time. This was, after all, the year of the ill-fated Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park, where a couple of Chicago DJs blew up a crate of disco albums between games of a White Sox-Tigers doubleheader. And touched off a riot that cost the son of the White Sox owner, Mike Veeck, his job in the front office.
Jennifer was an infectious song. I mean, I used to dance to it after a couple of wine coolers, maybe a rail or two of Coke, some eggs. Don't judge, it was a disco era.
Jennifer is also important because it addressed the brand new AIDS epidemic. Remember, this is 1979, long before Rock Hudson pushed AIDS into the national spotlight, and the Reagans tried to push it right back into the shadows.
I don't think anyone needs to be getting their health information from a Stools song, but at least it broke the ice, you know? Got the conversation started. The second song on the album was also a conversation starter, a conversation that lasted all night.
You can talk away the sorrow, you can tuck away the pain. We can talk until tomorrow, but not without cocaine. I'm not saying that you're not interesting, it's just the envy could use a sprinkler. Melissa with two L's. Melissa riding parallel.
Okay, these were the days when people wore Coke spoons around their necks, you know? It was a status symbol, not a stigma, and the Stools tapped right into that zeitgeist.
Lips out. Melissa, she never fell. Melissa, with you. Melissa.
Of course, 1979 did not start off with a bang for the band. On January 1st, they were scheduled to play one last time at Bill Graham's Winterland Theater before the place closed for good. But everyone was so burnt out from the Grateful Dead Blues Brothers show there was in New Year's Eve. They forgot to come down and open the doors. Tens of fans were turned away, but no rioting ensued because everyone was just too damn tired from the night before.
As smart a move as it was, getting the Stools to record a bunch of songs with chicks' names as the titles, Al Floss forgot about one thing. These are Stools songs. They don't always paint the most flattering pictures of their subjects. You know, Jessica, about the first girl a guy meets when he's fresh out of prison. Sarah, totally unfaithful woman. Angela tackles incest in a lighthearted way. Both Michelle and Elizabeth are about women who are too good for the room. And of course, Amanda, literally about a man. Duh.
Here comes the girl who's oh so bourgeois. Here comes the girl who likes aha. She's got hands like a bear paw. Do I have to spell it out? Her name's Amanda. Here comes the girl who never needs a bra. Here comes the girl with shadow on her jaw. Where'd she learn to work a chainsaw? Do I have to spell it out? Her name's Amanda. Amanda.
The Stools reportedly wrote Amanda after catching Twisted Sister at the Palladium in New York. The 3,000-seat theater was totally sold out, and Twisted Sister didn't even have a record deal yet. That's how out of touch the record labels were at the time. It would take another 3 years before Twisted Sister got a record deal.
Oh, Amanda. Oh,
record companies were starting to feel the pinch. With production, promotion, and support costs, it would take between $350,000 to $500,000 just to get a new album out there. So they really started limiting their new releases.
Of course, just because they cut back on the number of releases, that doesn't mean a lot of crap didn't get out there. Frank Mills' Music Box Dancer, Robert John's Sad Eyes, and GQ's I Do Love You.
As Frank Zappa might say, there were a lot of cocaine decisions made back then by the record companies. ABC Records, the home of the Three Dog Nights, Jim Croce, Jimmy Buffett, Ray Charles, and other huge acts were making overtures about singing the Stools away from the Dutchko, or just by Dutchko overright. But in Feeding Frenzy, MCA brought ABC for $30 million and then just broke the label up. MCA themselves would be gobbled up by Universal, which in turn would be snapped by Disney. So in the long run, the Stools were much better off staying put.
Hi, I'm famous radio personality Charles Laquadera, here to tell you about a fantastic offer from our friends at Dutchko. It's a brand spanking new long-playing album called Jukebox Explosion, The Hits of the Stools. And you can only get it by taking advantage of this TV offer.
That's right, Charles. Jukebox Explosion, The Hits of the Stools, is only available for a limited time. And you get such great hits as The Jukebox Lied Again, Cap Lock Voice, and the always popular Her Body Has Gone to Her Head.
I went to see the gypsy to have my fortune told. She said that it cost 50.
But that's not all. You also get the hits Frat Girl, Jackson Hole, and What's That You Say?
What about my favorite, Shut Up and Hold Mummy's Merlot?
You know it, Charles. Everybody's favorite jukebox songs of the Stools are included in this massive 2-disc set. So call now, and you could be enjoying songs like A Lotta Coladas within 4 to 6 weeks. Don't like the telephone? And who does? Just mail your check to Dutchko Teleproducts, Inc., Elks Grove Village, Illinois, 90007, USA.
Because if it says it's Dutchko, it's so-so.
In 1979, Jimmy Carter was president, and his brother Billy was working overtime at being a public embarrassment. He was just a drunken good old boy from Plains, Georgia, or so he'd have you believe. Behind the facade of a drunk buffoon was a wheeler and dealer who skimmed a reported $2 million off the Libyan government while his brother was in office. No wonder he and Al Floss got along so well together.
Among other things, Billy Carter set it up so the Stools would play a welcome home party for kidnapped victim turned bank robber Patty Hearst when she got out of jail.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter commuted Patty Hearst's sentence, and then Bill Clinton gave her a full pardon on his last day in office. Gotta wonder about that.
Billy Carter also got the Stools to play at the White House for a party his brother Jimmy was throwing. At the time, Chuck Berry was in a little trouble with the IRS for not paying taxes for something like 20 years. And Billy hatched a plan to have Chuck and the Stools play this White House party and get them in all good graces of the IRS. Which it did not work at all, because shortly thereafter, Berry got sentenced to 4 months in prison for tax evasion.
The Stools were having some legal problems of their own. The YMCA had filed a lawsuit against the Village People for their song YMCA, and Antonio Moretti was named in the suit because he was moonlighting as a construction worker in the band at the time the song was recorded. Fortunately, the suit was later dropped and Moretti was permanently replaced as a construction worker by David Hodo, an actor friend of his from the chorus of the Funny Girl revival on Broadway.
While they were at the White House, Billy Carter and Al Floss started pestering President Carter to make the Stools the U.S. ambassadors of music to Canada. This wasn't just resume building for the band. Earlier that year, Rush had been named the official ambassadors of music by the Canadian government, and that gave Floss an idea on how to clean up a little problem they had. And Jimmy Carter goes along with it and briefly names the Stools ambassadors to Canada. and the band retains their post just long enough to use their diplomatic immunity to get Cosmo Ditmar acquitted of felony menacing of a moose charges in Manitoba. Don't ask.
The whole Manitoba moose incident stems from January 3rd of 1979, when the band was mourning the passing of hotelier Conrad Hilton by trashing their hotel rooms at the airport Hilton and picking up Conrad's former wife, Jaja Gabor, who was appearing in the hotel lounge. Less said about the whole thing, the better.
After that, the band found themselves in need of some good press. So Alf Floss forced the band to fly down to New York and take part in the Music of UNICEF concert being held at the UN's General Assembly. A ton of great acts were there. ABBA, Earth, Wind and Fire, John Denver. The Stools didn't want to do it because it wasn't their crowd, and Elvin Anderson had some long-standing grudge against UN Secretary General U Thant over some land deal gone bad in Burma. But the show was going to be televised, and they needed good press, so they went.
The Stools got kicked out of the UN UNICEF concert about an hour before they were supposed to go on because Cosmo got in a fistifight with Chris Christopherson outside Olivia Newton-John's dressing room, reportedly after peeing through a knock hole in her wall and not taking turns.
The Stools certainly had no shortage of fodder for song subjects at this point, but the song Amy has to be one of the most troubling in the band's canon.
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry that I haven't been here. Oh, Amy, what delayed me was the same as always. And Amy, it's crazy and a little bit.
Musically, it fits the times, and it marks the return of Elvin's use of the theremin, a musical cousin of the synthesizer that they hadn't used on records since their surf days. But the lyrics are something else. What that is, I don't really know.
Sometimes you just have to let poetry wash over you, you know.
If you don't know what a lick and a promise is, I'm not going to explain it to you.
And that brings us to the last song on side one of Meat The Stools, Sarah. A song said to have been written about the infamous Nancy Laura Spungen.
Nauseating Nancy Spungen was Sid from the Sex Pistols' girlfriend. She was one of those groupies that chased around Aerosmith, Bad Company, the New York Dolls. She finally worked her way so far down the food chain that she followed Jerry Nolan over to London after the Dolls broke up and ended up with Sid Vicious.
The irony is, the Stools do a tribute to Nancy Spungen, and it isn't a punk rock song. It's a pastiche of the corporate rock that was polluting the airways at the time. Classic.
You can build a cat all you want, know where they go or what's the point. Only gonna leave the heartache and pain again. Sarah, gonna have to share her. Sarah, rock. You can walk around and say she's mine. Put out an ad, put up a sign. That's only gonna let the folks know you buffalo. Sarah, gonna have to share her. Sarah, right. You could take it for what it's worth. Take it all, cause the meat get the earth. You could take it up to a point. Pretty soon, you'll be out of joint. Sarah, Gonna have to share her. Save her. Gonna have to share her. Save her. Gonna have to share her. Save her.
Elvin Anderson doesn't talk much about Nancy. Won't even say if he knew her, and certainly would never confirm who he was really talking about in the song. But it's interesting to note that when Elvin met Courtney Love for the first time, he said, "I swear to God, I stabbed that girl to death in Sid's hotel room back in the 70s. That bitch will never die."
Elvin wasn't the only one with a Sid vicious connection. When Sid's death on February 2nd was ruled an accident, Antonio Moretti reportedly said to the press, "Accident my ass. I should get a medal."
Okay, now while the band was working on the album and apparently killing junkies in New York, Al Floss had to head back over to London. The Sex Pistols had broken up and their manager, Malcolm McLaren, was splitting up all their earnings. Of course, McLaren claimed it only added up to 30,000 pounds, although the band had reportedly made at least 800,000 pounds that year. But then Floss swooped in and demands most of the 30,000 for himself, claiming it was owed him for all the skag he had spotted Sid and Nancy in New York. I think they paid him off just to make the whole thing go away.
And what about side 2 of Meat the Stools? We'll take a look at that next time as the complete and alarming history of America's greatest garage band, The Stools, continues. Join us then, won't you?
Hey, insert your town. We're happy to be here. Playing for half the door and maybe a few beers. Here's an idea before this whole night goes south. Why don't we get paid, get drunk, get laid, and get out?